Yo, welcome back guys. Today we'll be talking about Eula. As of the time of this video, her rerun is due to release in a couple of days, so I want to cover some of her best builds, weapons, artifacts, as well as team compositions. You guys ready? Let's go. Alright, first up, talents. Because Eula is a physical DPS, your priority should be on her elemental burst as well as her normal attack. Elemental skill is of a lower priority because it does cryo damage and we don't really need that. However, leveling up the elemental skill is still recommended because it increases the physical as well as cryo resist shred when the Grimheart stacks are consumed. Now, I'm not going to go into the full details of her kit because that would take a really long time, but here's the basics to take note. Her elemental burst will reset the cooldown on her elemental skill, and her elemental skill will accumulate stacks that you can unleash by holding it. So basically her elemental skill, or rather her skill rotation, will be elemental skill into elemental burst into elemental skill hold to unleash the stacks, and releasing 2 stacks also gives you a mini E-burst from this talent that deals half the basic damage of her Q. You can think of it as like a baby Q that does a little bonus damage. So once again, I'm gonna repeat her skill rotation. You're gonna wanna go E into Q, and after this you go into E hold and normal attack until the Q explodes. Now normally that would charge up the sword, but because I'm not hitting anything, the sword remains small. But that's basically how her kit works. Okay, next, weapon options. Her best weapon is still probably going to be the Song of Broken Pines, as that is her signature weapon. I can't really say how well it performs because I don't have it, and I sincerely apologize. But for everyone like me who doesn't have the Song of Broken Pines, there are some other alternatives. So first up is the Wolf's Gravestone. In my testing, Wolf's Gravestone is probably one of the strongest weapons on her that I'd have. The attack bonus from this weapon really gives Eula a huge boost. However, I have that on my Diluc and I'm not really prepared to change that on Eula, and besides, there's another weapon that comes very close, and that's the Aquo Maru. And in fact, this weapon is super OP on Eula, provided you have the right team. Now, my R2 level 80 Aquo Maru was actually doing more damage on her elemental burst than my level 90 Refinement 1 Wolf's Gravestone in my testing. However, because of the much lower attack on the weapon of Aquo Maru, Wolf's Gravestone will still be better in terms of sustained damage, since only the burst on Aquo Maru is better. In terms of regular normal attacks, Wolf's Gravestone still beats out everything. Now, going down the list, the Skyward Pride is another good option. The energy recharge main stat will help Eula with her very problematic energy issues, and the passive Vacuum Blades give her quite a bit of extra damage. The Luxurious Sea Lord is super good on Eula as well. It's basically a mini Aquo Maru that has lesser bonus elemental burst damage. So those are the weapons that I would recommend. If you don't have them, then here are some of the other options that I have tested and will work on her as well. On the next tier, I would place Prototype Archaic and also the Snowtome Star Silver, as their stats, although useful, is just relatively low compared to the other weapons. Alright, time for artifacts. Pale Flame is literally the best set on her. It gives her physical damage bonus as well as up to 18% attack when you activate the 4-piece effect. Remember what I said about her skill rotation? Because her elemental burst resets the cooldown of her elemental skill, she can use it essentially twice and therefore proccing the 4-piece set effect of Pale Flame. Now, if you don't have good Pale Flame sets yet, you can sub in 2-piece Bloodstain as well, but do take note that you will lose out on the 18% attack on her. Now for the main stats itself, you want to go attack percent on the timepiece, and then physical damage bonus on the cup, and lastly on the hat you want to go either crit rate or crit damage. Now for substats, I would aim for attack percent, crit rate, crit damage, and a little bit of energy recharge will help her out a fair bit as well. Lastly, let's talk team compositions. Now, instead of only recommending preset team comms like I usually do, I want to highlight some characters first, just to give you guys some flexibility in forming your own team. However, for those that just want a preset team to follow, I'll show off some later as well. Okay, first character, Raiden. She is literally the perfect pairing for Eula in multiple ways. First up, Raiden will provide electro damage, and when combined with Eula's cryo attacks, forms Super Conduct, which decreases the physical resistance of enemies. Now add that onto Eula's original Grimheart Stacks Shred, you've got a pretty good amount of resistance shred. On top of that, Eula has quite a bit of an energy problem. Her Q costs 80 energy and her E does very little to charge it up. Raiden acts as a perfect battery here for Eula, and you can easily swap into Raiden after Eula's Q explodes. Also, Eula also complements Raiden because of the high cost of her Q. She would be able to easily help Raiden charge up her rings and therefore quickly increase the damage of Raiden's Q. In this way, they're always helping out each other and are the perfect duo for each other. Next up, we have Diona. Diona also acts as a battery for Eula while helping Eula to solve another of her major flaw. Eula is required to stay on the field for a very long time, and once again, I'm going to refer back to the skill rotation. She casts Elemental Skill into Elemental Burst into Elemental Skill Hold, and then into Normal Attack, right? So her Elemental Skill Hold actually has about a 1-second animation, and because it's an elemental skill, it doesn't give you invincibility like Elemental Bursts do. Therefore, it makes Eula very vulnerable when you're holding down her E. On top of that, you still have to remain on the field after that to use normal attacks to charge up her Q's explosion. If you swap her out, the Q will explode prematurely and does very little damage. So a character like Diona is very good because she provides a heal and a shield to Eula. I also want to particularly mention the Elemental Resonance in this case. Double Cryo Resonance gives 15% crit rate on enemies affected by Cryo, and although it technically will only proc every few seconds, it's still a pretty good bonus for Eula, since for the most part you're using weapons with no crit. Okay, it's time to show you guys some teams. So first up we have the Whale team. It's pretty decent for the most part, with Raiden being the core of this comp. Chi-Chi is here as a healer, plus her elemental skill will do constant cryo damage and hopefully proc the cryo resonance and give Eula some extra crit rate. Zhongli is here as the shielder to prevent Eula from dying during her animations, and on top of that, Zhongli's shield give another 20% physical resistance shred, so it's generally nice to run him in a team. The one thing about this is that Zhongli's Q only costs 40 energy, which in turn makes Eula's Aqua Maru do a little less damage as well, but I guess his shield and shred makes up for it. Next, let's see the not so whale but super fun team. I've been running this team during most of my tests with Eula. It's super fun, super high energy cost, and running this team makes Eula's burst super satisfying. So, Xingqiu's Q costs 80 energy. Same goes for Eula and Diona, while Raiden's Q costs 90. So this is a combined total of 330 energy, which at Refinement 2 Aqua Maru translates to 49.6% extra damage on her elemental burst. That's why this team is so fun and satisfying to run. On top of that, Xingqiu's Hydro attacks doesn't interfere with Superconduct whatsoever, regardless of what order you apply the elements. For that reason, Hydro characters are generally pretty okay to run in Superconduct physical teams. So Xingqiu is here as an extra off-field DPS, while also mitigating some of the possible damage with his elemental skill, which is pretty good since, once again, Eula is pretty susceptible to damage in her E-hold animation. As for Raiden and Diona, I believe I have already explained them previously, so I will not elaborate again. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm sorry if it ended up being a little long, but there we go, the full breakdown of Eula's build. I hope you guys found it helpful, and if there's any other questions you guys like to ask about Eula, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.